Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Cheryl Selman, and welcome to the Love Code. Thank you for joining me for another wonderfully uplifting conversation. And that's what I really love about these shows. It's an opportunity to be inspired, uplifted, to stay in a place where we are above the fray, so to speak. So we can always remember the truth, which is to stay connected to our heart, to understand that we are in a time of profound transformation, and to open ourselves to the possibilities that exist within us. So thanks for joining me, and if you are listening for the very first time, I invite you to go to my website, which is drcherylselman.com, because if you opt in there, then I can send you the archive versions of my podcasts, and you really want to listen to all of them. In fact, I have another show on Progressive Radio Network called What Women Must Know. So if you opt in to Dr. Cheryl Selman, you'll get both of those podcasts, or you can go to my Facebook page where I post both shows on What Women Must Know. So that's the Facebook page, because that's the name of the other program I do on Progressive Radio Network, What Women Must Know. So just go to What Women Must Know and like me over there, and you'll be able to get all of these wonderful shows. So we're going to dive right in today because we have a wonderful guest and an inspiring conversation, because we are going to be learning about and experiencing communicating with cosmic energies and entities for healing and transformation. I just want to say there are so many dimensions that we live within, or we are without, however we want to look at it. There are many dimensions of what we call reality, and it's so profound and expansive when we open ourselves to that truth, and especially when we can tap in. So to help us on this journey is my guest, Matthew Reifslager, and I wanted to share a little bit about Matthew. He is a spiritual and multidimensional healer and teacher. In addition to his ability to perceive and engage the energetic pathways of the body, he has formal training in energy healing and extensive knowledge of the human physiology. Matthew works with distinct cosmic energies and entities to provide healing and transformation. These include Divine Mother, the Archangels, and a circle of ascended masters. For many years, Matthew has worked with clients in personal sessions, workshops, retreats, and intensive programs. And recently, he created an online membership website that allows him to share the benefits of his work with an unlimited number of people around the world. And it's such a pleasure to welcome Matthew Reifslager to the show. Hello and welcome, Matthew.
Hello, and I'm so happy to be here.
Well, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. I just want to share with my audience that I actually met you when I was recently in Santa Fe and was an unexpected guest to your father's birthday party, and it was such an amazing time. It was a celebration of such love that your family has, and the people who are close to the family who were there. It was like being bathed in this bubble of love and gratitude at that time, and especially, just filling the room and your dad with all that love, which is how family should be. It was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I know that you have done some amazing work. We didn't get a whole lot of time together, so I'm so glad we have it now, because you really are quite an exceptional person in what you're doing with your life and your purpose. So I'm so glad you have some time and we can share some more. So Matthew, I think a good place to begin is just sharing a little bit about you and your journey, because you've had, even early in life, been in some extraordinary places and have been nurtured along the way to really support this blossoming of your spiritual purpose and destiny.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the best way I could say it in brief is the reality that I have woken up to and interact with, I know factually to be the reality that we all are connected to, and we all have these immense resources within us and immense love and wisdom that is available within us and around us. And for me, things started, at a pretty young age. You mentioned my dad, and he's just so dear to me and dear to a lot of people, obviously dear to me, hugely impactful in my life with the amount of love and wisdom that he has. But, back in the 1980s, he was building an intentional community, building a space outside of Austin. And that intentional community was geared around meditation and the idea of living in greater harmony with one's own consciousness and mind and thoughts, and then also with the environment and how that could look in terms of modeling it for the world. And I think that there's so much idealism that has been present in these last generations that we share together on Earth. And we're really all working together to see what does it actually mean to live in intention, to live consciously, to help shepherd the world into a place that is truly sustainable and make room for all of the deep differences that we experience, all the different lenses that we experience reality to be. And my dad was just really committed to that early on. And what I remember unexpectedly at that time was there is a medicine woman named Nakai Breen, who is a Cherokee medicine woman, and she is very remarkable. She passed away several years ago. And Nakai met my dad through, a great long story that would be way longer than the length of our conversation here. But to make it short, I just say that she entered my family's life at a very unusual time, and she really felt like she didn't have a lot of time for, I would say Westerners and their ways of the world. She said she had her way, but her guides were telling her to connect with my dad. And so she entered our life from an early age, and I still remember the first ceremony that I was sitting in on that she conducted, and we were doing a clearing for some of the land that we were trying to build this community on. And when I say we, I was 5, so that was my part. And at that age, I remember in the ceremony that she actually, while she was doing it, that a white hawk, an actual albino hawk, came from the woods and landed on a nearby branch. And that was the beginning of my concrete understanding that stayed with me no matter how rational and how in the world and in the sciences I got as I got older, that there was a mysterious realm of beauty and power and organization and wisdom that was not far from here, and that our wisdom keepers from so many traditions uphold. And they may use esoteric language, they may use archaic language, they may use language that our Western world, our scientific world, doesn't understand, but they're describing very important dimensions of reality. And not only dimensions of reality, but dimensions of our own consciousness that we have the opportunity, and I would even say the responsibility, to access and to become a part of, because without doing that, it's my experience that it can be very difficult to live the fullness of our life's purpose and potential, because our life's purpose and potential transcends just this world. It transcends just one story, one incarnation, one arc of experience, one generation. So that was the early time, and even as I went into much more of a traditional worldview and mindset as I got older, by my early 20s, it was unmistakable undeniable awakenings in consciousness that basically directed my life to dive deep, both into the interior realm and to continue to learn about the amazing reality that we are a part of, trying to parse between what it is that we believe about existence and what existence actually is, and how miraculous and how good it is.
Well, how blessed were you that you had such connections and experiences at such an early age? And it seems that in our 20s, so many people, that seems to be a portal time for awakening for so many people. It was a time when I had a profound spiritual awakening. I was about 20 or so, 21. Mm-hmm. And it shaped the direction of my life. And it seems that many of us in our 20s have a glimmer. There's something that happens that opens us to a greater possibility, and then it begins a journey of a lifetime. It certainly has for me, and obviously for you as well.
I love that. I think these portals are, it's a good word, and it's a rich word, and I think it has many accurate meanings. And I think these portals are always with us. These portals are always here. And what I've experienced over the last, just so people know, I'm 38. So what I've experienced over the last 17, 18 years or so is I had the good fortune of just working with so many people. I'd say probably somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000. I've never kept track, but a lot of one-on-one sessions over the years, and it might be more than that. But in that time, it was the blessing of who and what we are, that there are a lot of people that I met in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s, in their 70s. And at all ages, these portals are constantly opening to us, re-inviting us to make the commitment to what we are and to the life that we can live. And those that didn't take those early entrances at any given age, it's not a linear thing and it's not an absolute thing. And to see people step into their remarkable power in their 60s, in their 70s, and to go from as if one frame for what reality is into something else that opens up all of this richness for what's there. I absolutely think that there's something to young adulthood, that there's an invitation that shows up archetypally for us. And then there's something that is so relentless about nature and about the divine that is constantly knocking at the door. And sometimes that knock is a lot louder than other times.
And sometimes it's a wake-up call, It's a very loud knock over your head.
Always, yeah. Yeah, always.
So you have really delved into the world of energy healing and share that with people. You do healings. So talk about what your understanding is of true healing as you experience it through the modalities that you have learned from an energetic point of view.
Sure. Energy healing is, I think many of us have had this experience and understanding that all healing is energy healing. The fundamental tenet of energy healing is that everything is energy. And healing simply refers to realization or evolution or becoming. So potential being realized, homeostasis being achieved, and then new levels of self being discovered, of potential being realized. And so energy healing is, it's not just about chakras or meridians or attunements or activations or this modality or that modality. all healing is energy healing, and that includes all forms of Western medicine. That includes all kinds of surgeries and developments in the sciences, that it's all pointing to an underlying reality of what healing is, and that it is truly energy-based. And if everything is energy, that means that also energy, depending upon our terminology, but we could say that everything is energy, and energy is conscious. In other words, energy and consciousness are two sides of one coin. And as consciousness develops, just like a baby we could say is consciousness, but is not yet cognitively aware in the same way that an adult is aware, or a cell in your body is consciousness, but has not developed levels of awareness that the wholeness of your physiology is able to express. So energy develops as consciousness in greater and greater and greater levels of expression. And at a certain point, that consciousness becomes what we can call aware. And awareness is what humanity, us as human beings, we are working with. We are these beings that are millions and millions of years of the evolution of consciousness. We are consciousness in the making. And we have now become aware of our own existence, our own thoughts, our own belief systems, our own emotions, our own constructs. We've begun to map out what we are scientifically and biologically and physiologically, and we have all of these ways of describing reality. And that is our awareness beginning to see ourselves as energy. And so I think when most of us talk about energy healing, what we're talking about is the capacity of our awareness to guide and direct energy for the sake of transformation, for the sake of the realization of potential, whether that is to heal illness or to realize new states of personal development, of the opening of the heart to love. And so energy healing is typically going to be all of these incredible modalities. I have a feeling that many of us that are connected to this podcast are either energy healers or practice energy healing in numerous ways. And sometimes we talk about it as more physiology-based, different kinds of ways of moving energy in the body. And sometimes it's as simple as when we practice meditation and we are mindful of our own internal states of emotion and our own internal states of thought. And we start to see how, as real as those thoughts and beliefs may feel, that they evolve, they can grow as we place our awareness on them and we begin to see more clearly, and that creates healing for the physical body. So all of this is the domain of energy healing. And my heart, my commitment in life in this domain of healing is specifically to spiritual and multidimensional healing. And what spiritual healing is to me is fundamentally the understanding that, spirit is another word for energy, but it specifically refers to that unfiltered, raw unity energy that is the source of all things. And as that spirit grows in its own development, as source evolves, it becomes not just all of material creation, it actually becomes something that's very, very close to all of us, no matter our orientation or our spiritual path, and that is the idea of divinity. That is the idea of God as love. That is the idea of the self becoming not just pure potential, but highest potential, becoming a divine soul. And so whenever we orient to the divine or to the idea that the universe, that what is guiding it is universal love, we're orienting to the highest values of reality. We're orienting to divinity. And these are aspects of our own consciousness. Even when we have the most wonderful experiences of unity, or we have these miraculous experiences of God, or faith healers bring forward these great changes for people, there's this fundamental dynamic that is taking place between one's own innate soul self, their divine self, and where they are developmentally in a body. And we have access to those domains. And anytime we orient to how it is that we connect with divinity, how it is that we connect with divine soul, we're participating in spiritual healing. And so when I say multidimensional healing, I'm in part talking about the fact that creation, that energy structures itself not just in one dimension where we have five senses that can perceive reality, but even the idea that there's a quantum reality, and then a molecular reality, and then a biological reality, and then cultural realities. These are all dimensions of consciousness. These are all dimensions of experience. And that the world that we live in is very much connected to the world that goes all the way to the place where eternal wisdom resides, where we have great support, where we have teachers and guides from numerous traditions, from all of the holy traditions, that actually participate in the well-being and the awakening, the shepherding forward of humanity. So all of this is at play here. And I think that, probably all of us that are listening in on this have a fundamental orientation to these understandings.
As you're talking, I was remembering that there was an opportunity I had to experience the Filipino healers that go into the body, right? And it was pretty fascinating because, I was up close, and they were actually working on a friend who had a really, I guess, was frozen shoulder. And, so I saw them, go into the body and pull out whatever, literally put their hands into the physical body with obviously something energetically, dimensionally was happening, pull out stuff, and her shoulder immediately responded. But they always said that they can do this work and help address these issues, but you must change if you want to see this benefit continue. You need to change your attitudes, you need to change your thinking processes, you need to change what you're eating. And they said if you do not bring about these changes, the benefits that they received in the healing would not continue, would not be sustained, which takes us back to understanding that the messages are in our illness, and if we can have the awareness to know what those messages are, what our body is trying to tell us, or what our consciousness is trying to tell us through our body, we can have profound transformations in our life.
That is so beautifully said.
And you must see this all the time in the work that you do. So tell us from your perspective, Matthew, what is your understanding when people come to you with their physical challenges or maybe emotional challenges? What is it that you are really tuning into to help them?
So we could talk about it through maybe two different lenses here. One is modality of healing and how those mechanics work, and then the other is what is needing to heal, right? Like what is the cause of the the illness or the concern. And I think it's so beautifully said when we look at the need to change fundamental patterns and behaviors in our life. But one thing I just kind of want to backtrack, and it's always difficult to know, what someone's experience is when we're speaking to kind of the virtual world and people are dialed in. They've had their own journey, they've had their own life and their own very valid experiences. What I believe, or what I've learned over these years, is that we absolutely do co-create our reality. We co-create our reality. And one of the best ways we can do this is to work consciously with our emotions, with our thoughts, with our beliefs and our belief systems. And there are numerous ways to do those things. And it's very important to do that. And we can do that through inquiry. We can do that through meditation. Right? We can do that through behavioral change. We can do that through the most profound and loving connection to unconditional love energy. This is my major orientation in life, is the blessing and presence of Divine Mother. The divine that dwells in our heart as Mother's love, as Mother's eternal energy. And everyone has this, in my experience, equally and infinitely. And especially those that say, well, I don't like orienting to mother or to father because I had an abusive father, or my mother was rarely home or didn't love me. And that right there, is a core wound, and it's so understandable. But what is that wisdom inside that knows what mother could have been or should have been? What is that wisdom inside that knows what the ideal eternal father, what father's love should be, should feel like? That is the power of the awareness that dwells within. So that awareness that we cultivate is not neutral, is actually richly, and I use the word multidimensionally connected to divine presence. Right? That is what spiritual healing is in its simplest form, is receiving the grace, the vibration of Divine Mother. And that's the central energy of what I do, is working with Divine Soul, working with Divine Mother. In my experience, the capacity of that to create miraculous change in a person's life is quite immense. At the same time, when I say that we co-create our reality, that doesn't mean that we are the sole cause of everything that happens in our life. In other words, there are causes of illness that truly are, we could just say, environmental, toxicities. There are natural arcs of birth and death that we experience in life. And so I really caution when someone has been told by a healer, oh, you have cancer, and the reason you have cancer is it's all emotional, or it's because, you've been too hard on yourself all these years. What that can do is, the intention of that can sometimes be to empower someone to recognize that they have the ability to work with and heal their emotional body. But the problem with that is that life is vast, that the physiology is immensely complicated, and it's connected to this ancient biology, this vast field of being that's expressing itself creatively over eons. And as beings, what we have is the capacity to help to heal ourselves, and a huge amount of the suffering that we experience, and yes, the illness that we experience, is often caused by trauma, by not being able to work with or process the beliefs and the structures that are in our body that have happened through conscious impression. And at the same time, we do live in in a deeply biological world, in an environment that has these natural cycles of birth and of death, that has these very complex ways in which the body is formed and structured. And so the benefit here to me of us waking up to the multidimensional reality behind this basic way of orienting to physical life and to material life is that we begin to see and experience the eternal nature of the awareness that we are. And so, on the one hand, healing is about creating all of the healing that we can to live the most dynamic life possible. And on the other hand, healing is also about recognizing that in our consciousness that is already eternal, and not as an idea, but as a direct experience, where we begin to weave in our minds and hearts, connecting our human belief system with the fullness of the multidimensional being that you are, the incarnated being that you are in the flesh. We don't know what the limit of human healing is. I've seen enough beautiful miracles and transformations to know that it must be quite immense. Whatever that limit, if there is one, is quite immense. But at the same time, there are laws of nature that we all are functioning within. And a part of our process here is not only to heal an illness or to remove a suffering, but to wake up to that self that we are beyond just the human story.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. You know, I have been quite fascinated by the work of Joe Dispenza, and I've been working with his meditations because what he has developed with his experience in neuroscience, so he can, you know, he has the ability to explain the process of opening to vast potential that we have, and then he has the brain scans that shows when we enter into different states of consciousness, you can actually see the changes that go on in the brain and entering into different brain states, which are accompanied by miraculous healing. And I just think that the more we understand that there are tools and resources available to all of us that can transcend any physical problem. And I mean, I've even watched testimonials of people who had brain, spinal injuries, actually, like from 12 years before, and they were working in the meditations of visualizing the future, seeing their body functioning optimally, and starting to get function back. We are so amazing. The potential, and this is what you're saying, the potential that we have is immense. It's limitless. We just need to find a path that we are willing to go down, and the discipline to implement the meditations, the visualizations, the new learnings, whatever supports us in remembering that infinite potential and possibility that exists, no matter what we've experienced.
Yeah, I think that this emerging research is really promising, and it's promising in that it's documenting the leading edge of what those that have been in this field for a long time have already been working with. But because so much of it is the power of one's belief system, that when we start seeing it described in the religion of our time, which is, science, neuroscience, then we start to bring more of our mind on board with that power, because it's tough to mood make our future, right? We really have to be really committed to it. We really have to believe in it. And so all this work, that we're seeing in so many fields right now, primarily neuroscience, it is immensely inspiring. And something I'd add to that is how I think that what we're going to see in maybe not the coming years, but in the coming decades, is we're going to start to see a rebirth of very, very ancient spiritual ideas and ideals like the Divine Mother, faith healing, the divine soul, archangels, devatas, ascended masters, these things that have been moved into the realm of mythological archetype, right? Or have been moved into the realm of purely religion, when these are actually resonant aspects of your own self. So when at first we are working with the idea of visualization, now there's research to show if I visualize this, then it's going to create this chain reaction in the brain and nervous system and the endocrine system, and these things are going to be the outcome. But this is a really good development. But this is also, just remember, this is the very beginning of that exploration. What more are we going to find? Because there are dimensions of the self that have been documented for millennia that are far beyond just the power of the mind. They are the power of the powers that dwell deep within the mind, that you discover through very deep spiritual awakening. And that's where you start to create this wave upon wave effect, right? It's like that core element, these core technologies of groups coming together and doing intentional work. We're seeing there's power of intention. There's power of visualization. There's power in changing beliefs. There's fascinating research, for example, on the other end of multiple personality disorder expressing itself as multiple sets of symptoms depending upon what personality is being expressed at any given time. It's like another showing of what we might call psychosomatic illness, right? And I brought up that first point not as to be a killjoy, if that's the term. It's just the point earlier about also working with acceptance that we don't fully create our reality. If that discredits me with some that are listening, then I understand. But I've also seen a lot of people that they want to go in this direction, and they're like, oh, I can change my reality. I'm just going to visualize this, and it doesn't work in the way that they hope it does, because our ego mind and the power of our capacity to visualize and embody and create resonance in our physiology is great. But it's not greater than all of reality, all of physiology. So all I'm wanting to emphasize here is we want to develop our capacity to co-create. We absolutely can do things that science didn't think we could do just, a few days ago. And there is this value in discovering the vastness of reality, not only our abilities, but the presence of truly the divine, truly that which we might say that spirituality or religion has done a better job continuing to map. Even though science is now catching up to the power of the mind and to the mechanics of healing, there are dimensions of what we are that science is still not on the leading edge of, even in describing. And so this is my just heartfelt encouragement to those of you that are in conscious relationship with these, with the entities of the self and the divine that you orient to understand that give yourself time, that the research will catch up, to the power of faith and the reality of resonance that we are connected to beyond just the ways in which it's currently being understood.
And I think Lynn McTaggart's doing a lot of that by her intentional healing, which many people are now using, just setting an intention of sending love to people who are dealing with a health challenge, and doing this usually in the setting of a group, and seeing that frequency actually is shifting the frequency of that person, which allows change to happen, right? Just change to happen.
It's so amazing, isn't it? Yeah, it's great research that she's been doing.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to change tack a little bit, Matthew, because I know that you have this gift of being able to tune into these cosmic energies and Divine Mother. So here's my question for you. At this time of change in our world, what is the messages, the wisdom that you've been getting to help us navigate through this time of change? Because we are really stepping into the unknown. For most people, we're in the unknown, which is not always a comfortable place to be. Usually it is not a very comfortable place. But do you have any words of wisdom to share based on what you have brought through, what you have connected with, and your ability to tune in?
Yeah, help me frame it just a touch more in terms of what is it that you're seeing in terms of, the intensity of the time? Because certainly I think it's hard to miss the intensity of the time. And so what are the kind of the core critical elements that you're observing right now, or that those that you work with are seeing as being the most disruptive to one's own peace and the well-being of the world?
Well, I think it's a time that has been predicted from many cultures, from eons of years, that we are in a profound time. As one spiritual teacher I was talking to the other day said, we're between ages, and we are in the birthing process of a new level of consciousness, which embodies everything you have been sharing about healing and being able to tap into these other levels and resonant frequencies of possibilities. So, in my perspective, as I try to make sense of this, it's staying out of the dramas of what's going on the physical level, the politics, all the change, the dissolution of old systems. And, right?
Yeah.
We have to stay above it, because we need a bigger perspective. We always need a bigger perspective to help us through difficult times. When I've gone through major dark nights of the soul, I would talk to an astrologer, because if I had a roadmap, it would help my mind make sense of the chaos that was occurring, and I felt more comfortable with it, right? Like you can navigate a little bit better. So it's always staying above the fray, so to speak, and understanding that this is a time that there are possibilities available to us if we know how to work with these experiences. And basically that means going more within, connecting through meditation, prayer, however people do that, to feel comfortable with the unknown and to do the inner work, acknowledging your fears and insecurities, at the same time putting into play the inner resources that can create a different reality for us. So that's kind of my take on it, in brief.
I love that. If that's in brief, then that's a pretty good operating manual for the new time, isn't it? So here's for me the guidance that I've been given repeatedly, and of course it's in the same vein, it's in the same alignment, and that is You're an incarnated being. And we just come back to reality. We come back to what reality is. We have a body. We have a physiology. We have emotions. We have thoughts. We have beliefs. We have an ego. And all of these things are not bad. They're actually really good. That we have an ego, and that ego can go through suffering and can be very polarized. And that's just part of the ego's evolution. It's where it's at any given time. And right now, unexpectedly for the first time in human history, there is so much activity of human collective consciousness that it is unprecedented. That our ego, which is really designed to operate in much smaller tribes and in smaller relationships with other individuals, right? Over many millennia, it's been shaped this way. That we are now bombarded with sensory input and information that our physiology, our brain, is not equipped to process. And so it's immensely disconnecting. And it is almost by design corrupting to our own inner sense-making if we become too oriented to the polarity that is out there. And that polarity is just also a natural animalistic tendency that human beings have as animals to create power structures and to essentially remove one's own sovereignty. Because if we can control everyone, then there's that dominance hierarchy that is put into effect. And so when we just recognize that there's a reason why everything is functioning as it is, we say, oh, it's really important to unplug from this aspect of collective consciousness. That collective consciousness moves us away. That polarity moves us away from the innate wisdom that's available. And so it becomes these strategies of first, spend time in nature. Spend time quiet in nature. Unplug from this constant bombardment of information, because the world doesn't need all of us to be constantly plugged into this flow of information, much of which is misinformation. What the world really needs of us is the emergence of that sovereign awareness, that witness value. And the more we can do that, the more spontaneously we rise above the polarity. By rise above it, it simply means that we see it for what it is. That so much of what we need right now as human beings, and this might not apply to everyone, but I think this applies to most of us. What we need right now is not addition. What we need is addition by subtraction. In other words, we don't need more prayer and more meditation and more things that we need to do. What we need is to remove the elements that are actively toxic to the well-being of our physiology, to the well-being of our mind. Because it's simply too much stimulation for the majority of human physiologies out there. And that if we can do that, if we can remove the elements that are disruptive to our well-being, then we essentially supercharge, we lay the foundation for the meditation, the intention setting, the prayer, the group work, right, the emotional work that we do to really take root. And the more time right now that we can spend time just quietly with Mother Nature, with the core patterning that has been not disrupted, right? The patterning in nature that is that perfect resonance for our nervous system to come back to quiet places. Any technology of consciousness that shows us our natural resonance and rhythm as a human being. This is something that is critical right now from what Divine Mother has been sharing. And then the other thing I would add is deepen that relationship with Divine Mother's love or God in the heart. God in your heart. To deepen that quality of seeking and being with even the concept of the divine, even the concept of potential fully realized as unconditional love. Because more and more we discover that as our awareness begins to observe thoughts and beliefs and emotions not as who and what we are, but rather as objects in the field of our physiology, the field of our brain, the field of our nervous system, we discover that our awareness actually has immediate access and guidance. That if you listen closely in the silence and you ask Divine Mother, or you ask the ideal mother in your heart, what should I do now? What's next? What direction should I take today? How should I handle this situation? That we discover that we hear that guidance, and that guidance is given to us in a direct internal way that no one else can give to us, even externally. Even a very wise person cannot quite give to us what we are capable through our own heart and through the capacity that our awareness has of giving to us. So, just to summarize, it's all of these things. Yes, 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 and yes. It's not avoid collective consciousness. It's just avoid that collective consciousness. Plug into the collective consciousness that's valuable. Peer groups, women's groups, men's groups, conscious groups, participating in group intention. It's more powerful than ever because we are more powerful than ever. Human beings are powerfully creating all of this chaos. We can powerfully create all of this healing, right? So it's all of these things, and it is trust in the presence of the whisper of the divine in your heart, and cultivate that capacity now, because you can unconditionally receive the vibration of love that is the greatest teacher of all. It's not a new technique. It's not another thing to do. It is just a resonance that changes the way the body functions. It changes the way the mind functions, and it awakens us. It guides us in life. And the more we can do this right now, mostly addition by subtraction, but then also addition by addition, let's discover together what our awareness is connected to, because it's not just connected to the domain of thought and modifying our beliefs. It is connected to divine love, to Divine Mother, not as an idea, but maybe she starts as an idea, and then she becomes a living, breathing clarity of what human beings are waking up to become.
That was very beautiful, Matthew, and a great reminder that when we take time, and especially time in nature, I have a beautiful park that's very close to where I live, and I make it my business to be there every evening, sitting by the lake, and just being, because our nervous systems do get overwhelmed if we are looking at the news on the TV, the radio, the internet. It's jamming our signals. It's jamming our signals to the Divine Mother, to the innate guidance that we have to the peace inside. So I don't have a TV. I haven't had a TV for years, and I really limit everything that I get exposed to, and spend more time just being quiet, just being in nature, shoes off, feet in the sand, and just calming my system down. Especially by the end of the day, I just go and just drain all the busyness out and just be and watch the reflection of the trees and the water, and just enjoy being present in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's such a tradition of even these cultures that lived more in harmony with the natural world. Not to romanticize anything too much, but there's great precedent for living in harmony with the natural world. And these cultures still anchored themselves in rites and rituals that immersed them, individuals, through ceremonies even more into the womb of the mother. That there is an awakening that takes place not only when we take a walk in nature or we unplug, but we actually radically surrender in a neutral environment of Mother Earth's embrace. Because Mother Earth is the source of your bodily intelligence. It's this ecology that shaped the body, right? And so there's a wisdom that shows up as guides. There's a life-transforming capacity that is right here in the mother's embrace all around us. And so I love that, and I so agree. And no matter what we're doing, see if you can schedule 4 days, 5 days, a week, or just one night where you stay up under the stars in prayer. And let your wakefulness be your mantra. Let that connection and that heart connect with the quiet cosmos all around you, and see what happens in how it simply resets us in relationship to the rest of the world, because it's the world and all that information is addictive, in part because it has grains of truth in it. But in context to the reality that we're really connected to, it's just a drop in the ocean. And the more we can be connected to the ocean, the more we can affect the drop.
And that's a beautiful place to end our conversation, because we've come to the end. But I want people to know that they can learn more about you and your work and be part of your community by going to mastertransformation.org. That's Matthew's website, mastertransformation.org. So, this has been a wonderful conversation. Matthew, thank you so much for spending some time with us, sharing your insights and wisdom. It's actually been so uplifting and refreshing. So thank you so much for who you are and all that you do in the world.
Thank you for everything you're doing, and for everyone, all of you, for everything that we're all doing together. Lots of love to everyone.
Well, so be it. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining me, and may your week be filled with love, peace, and harmony. Bye for now.